You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years. This podcast is fueled by Eukanuba, the official performance dog nutrition partner of UKC.
Welcome to another episode of the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. I'm Domenick. I'm the Hunt Test and Field Trial Program Manager here. And today I get to sit down with Carter Turner. Carter has quite a robust background in SRS and found a whole lot of success in our Super Retriever series this year. And so we're going to kind of chat with him a little bit about what SRS is from a competitor standpoint, some of his success this past season, and give you guys an overview of that program as a whole and who Carter is as well. Carter, for starters, why don't you introduce yourself, a little bit on your background and your kennel you work for?
Yep. So Carter Turner from Patterson, Georgia. I have a wife and two kids, Waylon and Kip. Been training since 2017 full-time. Graduated college from University of Georgia before that. And now fully employed at Mossy Pond Retrievers right here in Patterson, Georgia.
So tell me a little bit about how you got into the retriever world and got into the professional trainer gig.
So as a kid, I always had interest in retrievers and sporting dogs and grew up with beagles and coonhounds. And a local guy named Brad Arrington started Mossy Pond and had some dogs trained out there by him. And he let me throw birds for him during the summertime and work for him. And throughout college, I'd go on summer trips with him and ended up, getting offered for a full-time job, starting off as just a beginner trainer and worked my way up to become the SRS competitive dog trainer.
Awesome. So, we'll jump forward a little bit into SRS, or Super Retriever Series, is kind of UKC's field trial format program for Labradors and retrievers in general. Tell me about your start in SRS. What was your first SRS event, and what was your thoughts as a competitor going to that?
So my first SRS event was last year at in North Carolina. I ended up getting second and sixth in the event, and I kind of already knew a lot about it going into it. Another one of our trainers, Lee Howard, has been running it for a couple of years, and I watched him and really followed along the sport, and I kind of knew participating in it, but knew a lot about it. First event I ran, I had a lot of fun, enjoyed it, ran a few events last year, and then this year it really hit them hard in 2023. My first event was in Geneva, Alabama. I ended up running 14 events, and I've learned something every time. It was some of the best times I've had.
Awesome. As far as SRS, so I kind of alluded to it, but you had quite a bit of success this year. You won Team of the Year. You won the Crown. You brought, what was it? Four of the dogs in the final series of the Crown were yours, right?
I had three.
Three. And Nike Award, right?
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit about Team of the Year. That's something that is kind of unique to the SRS program. So what does it take to get Team of the Year, and tell us a little bit about your journey getting there?
So Team of the Year goes to the dog in the SRS. They have an open Team of the Year and an amateur Team of the Year division. And it goes to the dog that has the most points throughout the year. And points are awarded by placements on a weekend event. You get 6 points for first place and goes all the way down to sixth place, gets 1 point, working in reverse order. And fortunately for me this year, I had three dogs in the running for it and battled all year long. Ended up having the top three placements in Team of the Year. The dog that won Team of the Year, he was one of the finalists in the Crown, got third. And the second place Team of the Year dog won the Crown, Cappy. So I'd say, being able to participate in as many as events I could, that means the Team of the Year, them dogs held together and was very successful every week. And they showed great success and not going just one time and doing good. They did every week. They come in there and they put on and got enough points to battle out the team of the year.
Sure. Coming onto the scene, like you said, your first SRS event being last year, you really you hit it hard. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You kind of came in and dominated this past year. Um, another thing that you got was that Nike award. Talk a little bit about your Nike award and how you won that this year too.
So the Nike award is given to the most outstanding person that's demonstrated throughout the year and is voted on by the peers. Somebody who shows excellent character in the sport, and has should be somebody that everybody looks up to kind of most helpful, most thoughtful. There a lot, and I think a lot of that is just to how I was raised up. Being in South Georgia, we try to treat people good, and everybody does, and and every time we go somewhere, I try to show that the best I can do is learn and be friends with all these guys and learn as much as I can from them. Also, it just makes these events go so much better when everybody's willing to pitch in and put in a hand and effort. And these are my best friends out there, and we're going to enjoy all this time. So let's show good character. And I was surprised winning that award. I was very honored. That was probably the best award, even better than the crown, winning it.
Yeah. It's always nice, for our shed dog program, we have something similar. We have a dog of the year running, which spans the two different classes in our shed dog. And then we also have awards that go to like judges and then our ambassador award. So our ambassador award is a lot like what you're talking about for the Nike award. And, it's a feel good thing to see the sport come around one individual and really say, this person's character stands above the rest. They're a great competitor. They're the guy that, even if they beat me in a tight race, I'm happy for them because they earned it and they're deserving of it. So, congratulations on that. That's fantastic to stand out to your peers also, not just have the dogs do all the work, but kind of to be that competitor that they all appreciate being there on the weekend.
Thank you.
So now moving forward to your success at the Crown. So how many dogs did you end up toting there for Series 1? How many dogs did you qualify?
So coming into the event, I had 8 dogs qualified. Obviously the top 3 dogs in Team of the Year. A couple more running in the race for Team of the Year. So I had a bunch of really nice dogs entering the event. After the first series, which was a hunt test series, I carried all mine to the second. And then after the second series, they cut the field to 18 dogs. Out of the 18, I ended up having 5 of the 18 dogs going into the third series. After the third series, I carried 4 dogs going to the fourth. And then to the final series, where they only carry 6 dogs total to the final series, I had 3 of them.
And what were those 3 dogs? I know you mentioned some earlier,
I had Cappy, Zeus, and Shooter. Zeus got 6th, Cappy won it, and Shooter got 3rd.
So, I mean, you're up there on that podium quite a bit for the Crown. I was also watching the Crown while they were streaming it. I enjoy watching that. It's fun. But I know you kind of did a couple of interviews where this was brought up too, but for people who aren't super familiar with the retriever world, there is a aspect to it where their dog is running a blind or something that they didn't see thrown in the field, and they're looking to their handler for direction. Well, on one of those blinds on the last series, that dog kind of loses line of sight of the handler a little bit, and they're trying to mimic an actual hunt test. So they had the dog in a blind, they had the handler there, and then they had 2 people shooting in a boat that was in a trailer right behind the handler. Now, Carter kind of realized his situation, and tell our listeners a little bit about what you did.
Well, for one, being able to have 3 dogs in the finals definitely helped the situation. I kind of got to go in there and, see it a couple different times. And the first few times I ran the blind, there's a part of the blind where the dog goes out of sight if you stay on the ground. And I tried moving left, moving right. You couldn't see the dog for about 30 to 40 yards. The dog is out of sight, but you still have to have that dog under control at that time. So going into my last dog, I looked around and I kind of had been thinking of it the whole time, but I just didn't know if I could do it, get up in there. And so I ended up turning around and jumping in the boat when the dog went out of sight. And from that then on, I could see the dog the entire time. And ended up running a really nice blind, and eventually could say that's part of the success to winning the crown right there was, being up in the boat, being able to see the dog.
That might have been one of the turning points for you. Now, I also happen to notice that, again, for our listeners who aren't super familiar, the handler will use whistles to kind of communicate to the dog to stop and look for direction if they're starting to go off on the wrong path. And you use two different whistles, right?
Correct.
And I think I noticed when you jumped in that boat, you lost one of your whistles, right?
I did.
So what was going through your head on that? Because it's a little bit of a give and a take, right? You work those dogs on two different whistles. I'm not sure, tell me a little bit about those two whistles, but you jump up there, you get the better line of sight, but now you're missing a whistle.
So the reason I use two whistles is they mean two different things to the dog. They both mean sit, which is what we blow the whistle for. Every time we blow the whistle, it means on one beep on the whistle, it means for the dog to sit and look for us and give it a command. And as one of my whistles means, just a normal, hey, you're doing a good job. Let's just change directions and keep going. The other one means, hey, you just messed up. You're going to get in trouble if you don't listen to this next command. And the one I lost was the one about getting in trouble. So fortunately for me, he didn't mess up anymore after that. But, at the end of the day, it's just something I kind of picked up throughout the year. I noticed that running some of our events, I needed a way to communicate to the dog in a form that is, still under the rules and still, in a nice demeanor. And the different tone of the whistle can mean different things. And that's the whole reason I use two whistles.
Sure. It's kind of interesting because I run hunt tests. And to me, you can almost kind of communicate that with a tweet versus a tweet. And you're out there running dogs on these massive blinds. So I'm assuming being able to have that tone, that little chirp might not even get there in time or might not even reach them given the certain wind or the certain conditions. So, I kind of inferred that was the idea behind them, but I didn't know for sure. And I thought it was kind of interesting because it was something I kind of picked up on watching you run.
Yep, and the one of my whistles is definitely a louder whistle and has a higher pitch to it, so that helps. On the long distances, if I ever get in a big windy situation, I can switch to it and still have control of the dog. Where my smaller whistle is more for in closer ranges, and because I blow a very soft whistle on when the dog is in close range, but still doing a very nice job. But I can blow the louder whistle for further distances, or if it needs, hey, kind of about like just giving you a stern look, like your parents used to do growing up,
Mm-hmm.
Just, hey, you better start straightening up. It's the same thing. Hey, straighten up or we're about to have a little adjustment.
Yep. Yeah, the look that could kill.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about, the dogs that you took over there to the Crown. You're at the big show. What's your relationship with those dogs? Where did you start forming that? Did you, kind of take them over after basics? Did you, when did you get a hold of them? And a little bit about their road to the Crown.
So out of the 8 dogs that I took to the Crown, only one of them I brought up through basics. I brought her all the way up through from 6 months old on up. The rest of them was all with field trialers before, and it's just a different aspect of the game that it's hard to build field trial dogs and hunt test dogs all at one time. And so I was fortunate enough to have got some really nice field trial dogs, but man, these dogs are they're all owned by clients, but they're just as much mine as they are the clients. I spend countless of hours, not just training, but forming a bond with these dogs. I'm the one who likes to put the food bowl in front of them every day so they can trust me. I'm the one who gives them the medicine if they get sick. And, I rotate these dogs coming to my house and spending time with me, living with me. So these dogs really know to trust me. They look up to me. If there's a group of people, they might check other people out, but they're going to come back to me. And going into the Crown, I think that was a big thing because there's a lot of tasks asked at the SRS Crown that is, absurd and kind of like, man, that dog's got to go that far or do that crazy stuff, and they really got to trust you to put them in that situation and know that, hey, I'm putting you in the right situation. Just go do it for me, and they all did it for me, and I think a lot of that is just a relationship I spend with them. I really thoroughly care for every dog I got, and I got one laid on the couch in here with me now, so he's we always just try to treat him just like family.
Mm. Yeah, that bond is definitely a big thing. I mean, like you said, for a dog to be able to look at you, or for you to say, hey, you're lining that dog up and you're telling them that, hey, there's a bird out there, you didn't see it, and we're at the SRS, so that bird might be 300 yards away from you, but trust me, I'll get you there. I mean, there's so much that goes into that trust and that relationship between a handler and their dog at that point.
Alan, we both had Dogtra Pathfinder 2s now for a little while. What do you think about yours?
I'm liking mine. One of the things I had the opportunity to now download a map of an area where I did not have service, and I've used it there, and it has worked flawlessly. I love it.
Yeah, I love the crystal clear maps. I love that I never lose reception on my dog's collars anymore. Highly recommended by me as well.
Dogtra Pathfinder 2, the official GPS collar of UKC.
As far as your career in hunt tests and training dogs, you said you started full time back in 2017. Was SRS a goal back then, or when did you kind of set your sights on SRS? Was it just something you fell into, or did you say, I kind of want to try that out?
So when I got hired on at Mossy Pond, it was full intentions to be a competitive dog trainer of some sort. At the moment, when we first started, we only started with AKC hunt test, and then we got into UKC hunt test shortly after. So we was in the field trials and kind of revamped and went to the hunt test game. And so I knew I was going to be very competitive in HRC, UKC hunt test. That was the main thing I was hired to do, was run them. So starting out, I run a bunch of young dogs and the started and season level hunt test, which is the beginners, which is probably the most fun to me. I get to see very young puppies go there and do what they're born to do. It's just as much trained as it is natural ability in the beginner level. Just a dog having fun, and I'd go do that, and I did that for a whole year, nothing but started and season level dogs. And then the next year, I finally moved up into the finish level dogs. And then now, starting around 2019, I was pretty much all finish level dogs, 2020. And then when COVID hit, it kind of, threw a little curve into it, for postponed some stuff. But I already knew I was in the SRS game mode. I was going towards SRS. 2022 ran 2 events, and then this year, been first year running the full circuit.
Okay. Must have, I know you said your first event was at North Carolina, and I was thinking for a second, I was like, was that back when I was working for a kennel and we put on an SRS event? But I think that was a couple years after that. But I do know for a fact that before we had this interview, I was texting you and I got confused. For some reason, I was thinking you were on Central Time, which just slipped my mind. But then I was like, no, every time I go to a hunt test in North Carolina, I see him or Mossy Pond on that handlers list. I was like, I know he's local. I should have known better. But it's always interesting to see how small of a world it is, and seeing your name on different handlers lists over the years, and then seeing you dominate at the Crown this past year was pretty neat. So as far as getting into retrievers, everyone kind of has a start before their full-time professional career. What was your first retriever?
So starting out, just starting out with dogs in general, I started off with rabbit beagles, and man, I competed rabbit beagles here in local in South Georgia, and I loved it, but I was not really very good at it. It took a lot of time, and being in school, high school and middle school, I didn't have time. Then I got into competitive coonhound events and ran a bunch of coonhound events, and sometime during then, right around college, or it was more high school age, my uncle was a duck guide in Arkansas and always had retrievers. So I was, looked up to him, and Brad had a retriever operation, and I was big family friends with them. So my first retriever was a dog named Costa. I got her for Christmas, a chocolate Labrador. And man, she did everything with me. And if I'd have known what I knew now then, she'd have been way better. Just starting out, I did things that I was like, I was trying to, she literally slept in the bed with me, rode in the back of my truck. I'd be at school all day long. She'd be in the back of the truck waiting on me to get out. It was, she was the dog I'll never get to have again. And I got way better dogs now, but she's just that special animal that was my best friend and, hunted with me. We hunted a bunch. And that's who really got me into the game. I didn't compete none with her because I didn't know what competing was then. Right after that, towards the end of her, I started finding out what competitions was as she was getting older. And I bought another little Labrador, Black Lab, and I started into the hunt test game at the beginning. And that's kind of what set it all off. That was in 2015. I ran my first hunt test.
Okay. Um, what? Tell me about your first hunt test then. The first time at the line, and we'll kind of compare that to your first time stepping to the line at SRS.
Yeah, so the first time I was at the line, I rode with Lee Howard to Sherall, South Carolina, and we was running an AKC master test and I was running my dog in senior, and I stepped to the line at the senior test and did a good job with my personal dog, and then Lee handed me one of an older dog that at the time being I don't think he had ever failed a master test. He was like a 7-year-old, and the owner had approved me to just to go get my feet wet and try it out. Well, I think I've successfully put the dog on his first fail. In the first series, he picked up like one bird, and I had to pick him up. I had no idea. I was scared. I was like, Lee's gonna be so mad at me, but he worked with me and ended up passing my dog that first weekend. And after I ran the other dog and failed it, and then went back to mine, I was so nervous to run, but got through it. And then on Sunday re-ran again, and then I started running the HRC circuit. And that's what really got me comfortable because the people in the HRC UKC events was just so welcoming, and you kind of get to relax a lot. And I went in there, I started running a bunch of dogs, and it really helped.
Yeah, that's kind of the recurring theme that we hear about HRC UKC hunt test is that whole atmosphere around them. It's laid back. It's kind of like a barbecue that people are just pulling their dogs out to do stuff with. Than it is like this super formal and event. I don't know. That's what I started running in as well as HRC, and it's just fun. It's just laid back and easy going, and even if you're a new guy and you show up, you got nerves out the ceiling, and somehow people find a way to calm them for you. Now,
Absolutely, and I think just the same people involved in both events. It's just the format of the event of HRC is so relaxing. There's a lot less people involved, so in the HRC they have a big most of the time on Saturday night they'll have an event like a dinner. Everybody gets to attend, so you kind of get more relaxed. I think that's the biggest thing. You relax. You get to meet a lot of cool people, and just it allows for a lot more success when you're comfortable hanging around the people than you are nervous around them.
sure, dogs pick up on that pretty easily too.
Absolutely.
Well, tell me about your first time stepping to the line at an SRS. You said it's in North Carolina, but what dog did you step to the line with? How did you navigate the mechanics of an SRS event? Like you said, there's different series are slightly tuned differently. So, what was your thoughts with it?
So the first in the first SRS, Lee he already had shooter qualified last year, so he allowed me to run him just to kind of get my feet wet. And Shooter he's a fine animal. He's placed now 4 years in a row in the Crown. Very, very successful on the weekends. He just misses one thing in the Crown, and all I was thinking in my mind was, "Don't screw him up." He can do it, but let me just not mess him up. And I went out there in the first series, and I remember it kind of relaxed me a lot. I was so nervous, but he went out there and put up an 8, which the SRSs ran like golf. The lower score better. And so he had 8 points and was like in second or first, somewhere around there. And man, after that, I was really comfortable. And then the very final series of the first one, I was like, man, I made it to the finals. and now I have a shot to win. Ended up getting second, but being able to have him stand beside, he bailed me out when I made mistakes for a long time, and that's really now the kind of the teamwork we got is he trusts me when he don't know. I can help him out and he'll do it. But if I make a little mistake, hey, that ain't right, and he'll do it. He'll bail me out too, and that's still going on today.
Yeah, yeah. So fast forward to this year, you have all of the success. You win basically everything there is to win in SRS. Where do you go from here? What are your next goals as far as the HRC and SRS world concerned?
So I run the HRC International Grand as well. So as soon as the Crown ended, we kind of went up there and ran it in Kentucky, and we'll be back in the spring running it and running in February for that SRS starting that season. But some of my goals already, I'm starting to set some in. Every year I set goals, and flashback to this past year was one goal I had was just make a name for myself in SRS, not really have success, but just get people to know who I am. And I'd like to say I probably did a good job at that one, so I can check that one off. But next year I want to have double-digit dogs qualified in the SRS. This year I only had 8. I had a couple more that were just a couple points shy. I'm saying now I'm not going after Team of the Year after winning it this year, but I'm very competitive, and if I get in that race again, I'll probably more likely go after it. In the HRC, everybody's chasing the 100% pass rate for the International Grand. It's probably the hardest hunt test there is, but it's so much fun, and for some reason we all go back every year and try to get a piece of it. But I think it's because we have that competitive nature to be 100% and to run the most challenging test really puts a testament to what our dogs do.
Yeah.
And SRS obviously get double-digit dogs qualified for the Crown and go after another Crown win. A lifetime goal I got is I want to have all 6 dogs placed in the Crown, 1 through 6 in the finals. But, that's just one of them far-fetched goals that, hey, if I ever do it, I can be really happy.
Yeah. I mean, there's no such thing as a goal that's too big as long as you're working for it, right?
That's correct.
Go out there your first season really and fill up half of the spots in the final. I think it bodes well for your future in it. Do you you spend a ton of time working with these dogs. Do you still find time to go out and hunt birds, or what are you, what are your hobbies outside of it?
Well, my hobbies is dogs, but because I love it. I don't look at it as a job. My job is to customer relations, hang out with people. The fun part is training dogs for me. I love being able to read dogs. I love being able to hang out with the dogs and see them. These dogs are bred to do what we do. I love seeing them achieve everything they can achieve, taking a dog as far as it can go. It really is the best thing you can do is see a dog fulfill what it was born to do. And, outside of the competitive and retriever world, I do hunt a little bit at Mossy Pond. We have a hunting operation. So I guide a little bit and we'll hunt with them some. We do upland pheasant. So, that's something kind of not used to growing up. We never did upland pheasant, but now we have an upland pheasant, quail hunting and duck hunting. And I get to go probably about one time a year out towards the flyway and shoot some wild ducks. But a lot of it's just based off of retrievers. My oldest son, he go-kart race, so fortunately I don't know nothing about it. But I try to go with him and learn as much as I can when I do get to go and hang out with family. That's the biggest thing. We on the road so much, we got to have them people at home taking care of everything else, so we got to treat them right too.
Absolutely. So you kind of mentioned your kids a little bit. Do they understand kind of what you did at the Crown this past year, or within SRS as a whole?
I don't know. My 4-year-old, I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. The 1-year-old, of course, has no clue, but the 4-year-old, he's starting to get it, and he's really into dogs. He loves it. He loves going out to the kennel and training. I let him run a few dogs. His personal dog, he run in a started test, and he put a started pass on it himself. I stood off to the back and didn't do nothing with it. So, that was probably a great blessing of the whole weekend of running that test. So he really starting to understand the game. He knows all the basics, what the dog should be doing. And my wife has a video of my little boy jumping up on the chair, basically reenacting me jumping in the boat at the Crown. He jumped on the recliner and was blowing. He had his whistle in his mouth the entire time, blowing and doing everything I was doing. So, getting to go back home and watch that video, man, that really hit home there.
That's awesome. You got your own little fan club going on back at home, watching the SRS live stream.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd have to say I would put in statement that I don't know if anybody else in the country had a fan club going on like I did, and there's a lot of people watching. But my family, man, they rallied together. I have a great support system down here and a big family that every one of them sat down and was watching. I had family members in Disney World, had people in Disney World sitting with them watching, didn't know nothing about dogs. Just they were watching the Crown every step of it. They were so excited for me, and they were so excited for the dogs, and know that we spend so much time and hard work for it to pay off. They were just as happy as I was, if not happier. My mom drove about 14 hours the night before just to watch me run 3 dogs in Shreveport. So that means the world to me. So I had to you can't do it without a good support system and a good family, and having them as a backbone cheering me on, that made it a lot easier.
For sure. Do they kind of understand the world of retrievers some?
I don't know if they understand it or if they're just starting to learn it. That they're kind of new to it now that I'm getting more competitive into it. They are starting to learn everything they can, but I don't know if they realize, just how big the retriever world is. Not yet, because it's huge, and there's a lot of people in the retriever world, a lot of great people.
Yeah, absolutely. I asked because it's kind of funny when you did that whole boat cast thing. Um, I was watching it on my computer in my office, and I paused it on YouTube. And I was like, "Babe, come here! Look at what this kid just did." And I realized how much I had to explain to her about what was going on. I was like, "Man, I probably need to do a little bit better homework on teaching her what it is I do on the weekends when I go run hunt tests." It was like a quick debrief on, well, here's what this dog is doing, and here's what happened in the situation. This is why you did this, and look, just so that's why I was wondering, if they might have understood the gravity of that play call there with Cappy.
Well, I will say most of my mom has learned a lot this year, and my wife, she's learned a lot. Just kind of me talking about it all the time. So they know a little bit, and I think they understood what was going on. A lot of my family members, they were just as shocked and was tickled. But the SRS did something this year. They brought in Pat Burns to commentate for the Crown, and I've heard nothing but great reviews from that. And man, we surely hope he's back next year because he's going to be tremendous for it. And the excitement he and J. Paul and whoever else was on the thing, my family members have talked. I think they got excited just because they heard the excitement of them announcing it, and so then it was like, oh, this must be pretty good. So then they
Mm-hmm.
started paying attention, and they learned a lot throughout the week as well. They didn't miss a minute of the entire Crown. My aunt watched, and she knows nothing. She don't even like dogs that much. She's kind of allergic to it. And she watched it. She stayed up watching it like all the time, was watching the Crown. So it was, pretty cool for her. She was asking me questions. I was like, how do you even know what that means? But the commentating on the Crown is, if people want to really learn about it, it's great time to watch it because they really went in depth on every dog and talked about all the different stuff about the retriever world.
Mm-hmm. So, congratulations on all your successes this past season. Definitely wish you a ton of luck with your future goals and sweeping the entire last series. What are your plans as far as, I know you said you're planning to run the Grand, you're planning to start your SRS. Are you also going to be running your weekend hunt test? Are you going to be back in the HRC world? Or are you going to really hunker down and focus on that SRS game?
No, we we still have to qualify all of our dogs for the AKC Master National again, just like every year, and I have quite a few dogs. I think I have 6 dogs that are near 500 points in HRC, and I have 2 that are really close to the 1,000 and putting them in the Hall of Fame. So I'll definitely be around a bunch of HRC events. It's just as many as if anything else. I've kind of branched out into field trials. Last weekend, I stepped out and hit a field trial and ended up getting a jam with Cappy and mine and his first field trial. So, might piddle with some of that, but the biggest things are our HRC hunt test, and the SRS is our biggest thing we do outside of qualifying for the national. And we're going to start back in January. Or mid-January is our first HRC event. We'll be hard at it, and trying to put these dogs in the 500-point club and Hall of Fame and get them ready for the Grand. And see what we can do in the SRS as well.
Well, good deal. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk about the SRS and your success this past season. It's always exciting for me as a dog guy to sit down and talk with any other retriever guy or dog pointer, or just anything in the dog world. But I thought it was kind of neat how you said you started off in beagles and coonhounds, and UKC's well known for their. Did you do UKC stuff, or did you do some other organizations back when you were doing that?
So when I started off with the beagles, a lot of the trials were just kind of local club trials, and then we did actually participate in some beagle trials. I was still, like I said, I was in middle school when I first got my first pack of beagles, and so I didn't do a whole lot of competitive beagle trials just because of my age. Now in the coonhound events, I run a bunch of UKC coonhounds. I had 3 night champions I owned, 1 grand night champion, and then I did run some of the PKC events as well. But going back to when I started with beagles, I think really taught me more about dogs, coonhounds and beagles, because I thought dogs. I lived dogs when I had them beagles. I'd get out of school, I'd come home, I'd train them, run them, hung out with them beagles. And one big thing I've noticed about dogs is you got to be able to read a dog. You got to be able to take the time and understand what that dog's feeling, what he's thinking, and that helps you train him. And that's in any aspect. If we're just training an obedience dog, an agility dog, of any form, you need to know if that dog. I can look at that dog and be like, "Hey, something's wrong with that dog," or "Hey, that's one really happy dog. He's doing a good job. He's really wanting to work for him." Just being able to really look at that and tell. And I think that started off as a kid for me, reading them beagles and spending so much time with them. I learned that in taking them coonhounds out at nighttime and then early mornings. I was the youngest person by about 50 to 60 years in the people I hung out with, running coonhounds. My neighbor took me a bunch, and my uncle when he could go, and just being around the dog world and learning so much about each different breed of dog also helped me in what I do now because of the way I can read a dog and be able to treat them and hang out with them and just the personality of dogs.
Gotcha. I got one more question for you. Are you by chance a big sports guy?
Absolutely.
All right. So here's one you probably hadn't heard before. If you had to take the 3 dogs you carried to the last series of the SRS and compare each one of them to a pro athlete, any sport, who would those 3 dogs be?
Ooh. So Zeus, we'll start with Zeus. He's a 10-year-old, so he's one of my older guys. And I'm gonna go with the Tom Brady, aspect when he was finishing up. And the reason why is, Zeus, I don't think Tom Brady was great, and he's one of the greatest quarterbacks, if not the greatest quarterback to play.
Drew
But he
Brees.
always put himself
Sorry.
in. Well, Brady will always put himself with a lot of good talent around him as well, and to help him. And what he did was he didn't really make a whole lot of mistakes. He was never just great, but he didn't make a whole lot of mistakes. And that's Zeus. Zeus is just consistent. He's going to be Zeus every time. He's not really going to make the bad mistakes to knock you out of the test, but he's probably not going to go hit the home run either. He's just he needs help around him. So long as he's just holding his own ground and everybody else, he allows them to mess up. Cappy being the crown champion, he's real level-headed. I'm going to switch to baseball here. And, well, He's not. I don't know. This is hard on them.
I mean, it's hard when you pick one of
You know,
the best household names for Zeus. Now, where do you go from?
well, I went with that because of age. Being the older guy, being in there. But cat shooter would be more of a LeBron James style. I'm trying to think of the greatest players. Great players, not the
Mhm.
greatest, but the great players. The LeBron style player, because I think he tries to show it a little bit. And, shooter knows that he's good, and he puts himself out there. He'd be the front of the media, I guess that'd be. But he's kind of cocky a little bit, but he's real dominant. Um, that'd be more of the shooter style for basketball, and then football, or I'm trying to think of a baseball one for Cappy. Um, Almost like a Mike Trout,
Okay.
a baseball player. Cappy would be a good Mike Trout. Very, very good. Very good athlete. Very good. Just not really. He's not going out there and making a lot of news statements. He's not. He's just doing what he's got to do week in and week out. I guess there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of all of them, but Cappy's the type of dog he really want to work with you, and that's what makes him so great. He wants to please me and do everything he is trained to do and what he is known to do for the last 7 years of his life. He wants to do that every time, and you know, there's times he messes up, but he gives me 100% effort every time, and that's all I can really ask for. A dog that messes up is still a dog, but a dog that gives me 100% effort and does almost everything right, messes up sometimes, man, that's more than a dog. That's the greatest dog.
Yeah, it's always a special thing when you have a dog that wants to work and wants to work with you. I mean, you can do so much with that. People sometimes I think get caught up in
Absolutely.
flashy and fast, and yeah, all of that stuff is good and showy, but at the root of it, that dog that wants to go out there and do the work, and the dog that wants to work as a team is so important.
Absolutely, and Cappy is 100% a team player. I could have threw Shooter in there as like a Bill Belichick or something, because I call him the coach a lot. Shooter was the first one I ran in the SRS. I guess would have been a good one. He taught me a bunch, so he kind of thinks he knows sometimes more than me, and sometimes he does, but he still has to be a team player and trust me. Where Cappy, it's all trust. He wants to do what I want him to do all the time, and he's going to give me everything he got. And that's just you can't teach that to a dog. That's born into them. That's how you raise them. It's not really taught. It's just how they're brought up. And the dog that feels like, man, I want to do everything that guy asked me to do. You can't beat that.
Absolutely. It's funny you talk about dogs that carry us through tests. One of the things that I've always done while I'm like from started all the way up is I'll try to find someone to record a video of me running a dog. And I remember is for my oldest, it was our first season pass. Someone was recording. A winger went off. Dog marked that one. Next one went off. I had the gun jam. I was like, oh, she's gonna miss it. She's gonna miss it. And she heard the thud and turned and looked at it. I was like, oh, I don't know that she saw it. And the whole video is basically me in shambles, falling apart, trying to fail this test, and her somehow carrying me through it and going, okay, I know you gave me a left back, but off to the right. I'll take your cast, but I'm going to get you pointed in the right direction. But I digress. I bring that all of that up to talk about the dog that wants to be a team player, but those dogs also want to win, and they know where that bird's at more than you sometimes. But
Absolutely.
Carter, I appreciate you coming on here. Love getting to chat with you. Love talking dog and hearing about your SRS successes. And I really hope our listeners were able to envision what we're talking about when we talk about the SRS. And if you guys haven't, be sure to go check it out on YouTube. They got the entire crown there. But if you just want to watch the 5th series and see the 3 dogs that Carter was talking about, and see how well they fit into Brady, LeBron, and Mike Trout, or Belichick, you can go check it out on YouTube, and you'll also see that whole boat cast situation, and you'll get a feel for kind of how jaw-dropping that was in the moment for a lot of people watching. But thank you again, Carter. I appreciate you taking the time to join us and chat some.
Well, thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on new episodes.